Hello, my name is Chris Smeaton. I'm Superintendent of Holy Spirit Catholic School Division here in Southern Alberta, and I'll be leading the next session for Leveraging System Leadership Project. Today I want to talk about creating a culture of innovation with a focus on the role of Chief Superintendent and that of the senior team. While we always need to be aware of and promote distributive leadership, the right tone at the top is essential to scale innovation in terms of depth and sustainability, spread, shift, and evolution. So what is your culture? Well, I understand that the focus of this project is around technology. I'm a firm believer that any change requires a strong attention to culture. Peter Drucker was pretty emphatic when he said, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast." You have to start there. You have to be willing to be honest on the culture that truly exists in your organization, as opposed to the one that you think exists or the one that you want to exist. So what is your culture? Is it one of compliance or commitment? Is it one of competition or collaboration? Does it focus on teaching or focus on learning? Is fear or is it trust? Do you focus on accountability or assurance? And is it a culture of talk or a culture of action? While culture is owned by everyone, if the culture that you desire as a leader is not modeled by yourself, it is extremely difficult for others to join in and build on that culture. Remember, tone at the top. I don't think that any leader was hired to maintain the status quo. All of us were brought in to either continue to grow the organization or completely rip it apart and start anew. The bottom line is that nothing magical is just going to happen. While Alberta continues to be a high-functioning jurisdiction, we are still allowing kids to fall through the cracks. Notice that I've said we are allowing them, because we continue to maintain practices in our schools, in our systems, and our classrooms that are no longer effective. And then we hope magically that these students will smarten up, give a damn, and start performing to the level we want them to be. While our intentions may be good, good intentions are not good enough. Creating a sense of urgency is part of the culture picture. We need to understand that it cannot wait until tomorrow or next week or next year. Our basic commitment to our communities, to our students, to our parents, even to ourselves, as expressed by Simon Breakspear last year, must be at least 1 year of learning progress for every year of schooling. In my opening address to staff in 2015, I made this statement: paint a picture of what adulthood looks like for those children who don't succeed in our schools. Without hope, there is little chance that any negative cycle will be broken. That is our urgency. Here's where the leaders either come to the plate or go home. This is where they either make the shift from compliance to commitment and make the shift from talk to action. If you're going through this with your team, this might be a great time to stop and have a discussion on the following questions. First one, what is the culture of your system? And how do you know? There are some great culture audit tools out there to assist you in this, but don't be alarmed if your culture spreads the gamut depending on departments or schools or even leaders. Reculturing is an ongoing endeavor. As a superintendent or senior member of the system, what culture are you modeling personally? As Jim Collins, author of Good to Great, would say, you need to confront the brutal facts, and sometimes it's not too pretty. Welcome the flaws, welcome the ugliness, because until you acknowledge it, you can't overcome it. And finally, how are you creating a sense of urgency in your system? Many years ago, I remember Anthony Muhammad telling us that people would rather do the wrong thing competently than the right thing incompetently. Without a sense of urgency, we will continue to default back to what is our norm, what is comfortable, and often what is best for some and not all students. Don't underestimate the importance of those last questions. You need to be very clear of your culture first and understand the why. Why innovate? Why change? Why grow? The sense of urgency created from schools falling through the cracks, from negative cycles continuing, from little to no improvement are sufficient to understand our why. If you're truly set on creating a culture of innovation, a system where all students learn, not just some, then you need to start with the why. You need to start with the heart, and then move to the what and the how, or to the head. Too often in education, and especially in our professional learning, we just want to get to the how. Give me something, some trick that I can implement tomorrow. But if we want whole systemic change, or individual change that is long-lasting and sustainable, we always have to begin with the why. I've entitled this a possible recipe. You're not likely going to hear anything new in this next part, but I can't underscore the importance of these next points as a possible recipe for building a culture of innovation, and then ensuring that the technology is successfully embedded to positively impact student learning. I say possible recipe, knowing that we all have a context that we live in and must adjust to address the context. Finland and Singapore have two of the best systems in the world, but cannot be simply transferred to any of our systems without acknowledging and adjusting for our various contexts. There is no magic bullet. The first key, I believe, in the recipe is building strong relationships. Fullen says, love your employees. And I think it starts a step back by first getting to know your employees, and more importantly, letting them know you. From my perspective, our staff needs to know not just Chris the superintendent, but Chris the husband, and the father and the grandfather, the guy who doesn't wear a suit all the time, loves wearing a ball cap, and doesn't typically shave on the weekend. And they can't get to know you if you're stuck in your office all the time, and if you don't show the real person. In other words, you don't show your vulnerability. Most of you know that I'm well involved in Twitter. And while it is an excellent and important learning strategy, it also allows people to see beyond the role of the superintendency. Even in my blogs, I try and show a personal side which allows more people to identify with me. But the important piece is relationships aren't built through emails or text. They are built through personal connections. And these connections can't just happen in our offices. They have to happen in the schools. You need to be present in your schools, being a real person and not showing up only when trouble is brewing. I'll guarantee you that most every issue that you have in your system stems from a superficial or broken or non-relationship. In a book by Chris Loney, he talks about why he leads the way he leads. And what I've taken from that is my presence in schools. So for about 6 months of the school year, I try to spend a half a day in a school every week. And these are the scheduled visits. And they don't count the days when I just pop into the schools to say hello, sit with the staff during lunch, or visit the administration team. And I'm very fortunate to have the relationship with our school leaders who tell me when they think I'm not in the schools enough either. Now, I know I have an advantage that I've been the superintendent in this division since June 2009, and I also recognize that I lead a smaller school division. But I've had the pleasure to be around leaders of much larger divisions and watch them build relationships the exact same way. If you want to create trust, relationships are key. We need to surround ourselves with the right people. And so hiring the right people and leadership accounts are strategically entwined. I've had the distinct advantage, and I really believe this, that over the past 8 years, I've been able to hire the majority of our senior team. And I've been an integral part of all school leader hires. Hire excellence. Hire better versions of yourself. Hire for the future and not for the past. No matter how long you intend to be in your position, your hires must be building capacity. So when you leave, because you will leave the system, it has to continue to grow and develop. It has to get better, not worse. A mentor of mine used to tell me that the most important position in a school system is the principal. The best systems have the best principals because leadership at the school level counts. I'm not saying that I don't believe in the importance of senior leaders, but if you really want a great system, liberate, support, and engage your school leaders. Build in checks and balances in order to trust and verify, but you will find out that a system with great principles is a great system. Make sure you know who's on your team. Make sure everybody in your boat is rowing and not drilling holes when you're not looking. That is why hiring the right people and investing in leadership is so important. You need people who are with you. They may disagree with you, but they can't be drilling holes when you're rowing. The next piece I want to talk about briefly is culture of learning. It's something that I've said many times before, but being learned is not enough anymore. We all must be on that learning journey, and it has to originate from the top. Remember again, tone at the top. The CEO must stand for Chief Educational Officer. In other words, the lead learner. Because you cannot ask your staff to be engaged in professional learning if you are not demonstrating it yourself. I love the quote from Coach K from Duke University, who I believe says it the best. Never become so much of an expert that you stop gaining expertise. View life as a continuous learning experience. Another thing I've said before is you're likely not learning if you haven't had some missteps, some revelations, or you've simply felt uncomfortable. We know that learning stretches us, and we make mistakes along the way. So if we know that, why do we consistently ask for perfection by not allowing a culture where it is okay to make mistakes? Learning across the system requires what we typically call in Holy Spirit a fail-forward mentality. My job is to create a sense of discomfort for change to occur within a safe and trusting environment. Finally, data does matter. I've left data to the last, not because it is least important, but in reality, if you don't have strong relationships within your system, data tends to be used to finger point, or it's misused, or worse, it's not used at all. Last year, our own teachers developed a common math assessment for grades 1 to 9, and that was used by every math teacher in our system. The end result was less important than the learning that came about, and is still occurring around the development of the assessment. I can say without hesitancy that this development would have never occurred when I first began as a principal in the system because of the quality of relationships, and quite simply, because data was a swear word. In our system now, we are at the point that the same question, how do you know, that senior admin asked school admin in their improvement plan, is now being asked by school leaders to teachers. And here's the critical point. My own professional judgment is not a sufficient response. We need more than just someone's professional judgment. We're trying to ensure that data is being used to inform instructional practice, not rank schools, not rank teachers, not finger point, but rather enhance instructional practice to improve student learning. We go out to our schools and visit them on a quarterly basis, and we ask 3 questions. What have you done during this last quarter to meet your goals? What are you going to do during the next quarter to meet your goals? And the third most important one, and what data are you using to inform your progress? My only caveat here is that we don't always have the right or the best data. We easily assess achievement, but find it more difficult to assess learning. But even with that, we are constantly looking for opportunities for better data to, again, enhance instructional practice to improve student learning. Here's another opportunity where you may want to pause the webinar and allow you and or your team to reflect and respond to the following questions. How are you as a senior leader building strong relationships with your people? What are you doing with intent? What are you doing to show the real you? What processes do you have in place to hire the right people? Is succession planning part of your process? When you hire, do you only look internally or do you look externally as well? How are you building the learning capacity of your school leaders? Are you interacting with them as a leader or as a manager? And how are you investing in them and engaging with them? What evidence is there that you are a leader? Are you the lead learner or the lead manager? And more importantly, how are you demonstrating your learning to your staff? And finally, how do you use data? Is it useful? Does it meet the needs, your needs, the needs of the school, the needs of the teacher, the needs of the students, and the needs of parents and community? Finally, it's really important that we try and eliminate the silos that exist even in our own systems. Our senior administration leadership team, or SALT as we affectionately call us, consists of myself, our deputy superintendent, secretary treasurer, and directors of learning, religious ed, First Nations, Métis Inuit, support services, and finance. Every Monday morning, this team meets from 10 to noon. While we know that each person has a particular portfolio, there is an understanding that they all impact each other, and so a practice of community has developed. The relationship between our Director of Learning and Secretary Treasurer with our network administrator further exemplifies this cross-function. He sits on both the teams of learning and of business, since technology has both a learning and a financial implication. Making the shift is important because buying technology is and will always be a black hole. At one time, we just bought technology for the sake of technology. Now, with the Director of Learning and Network Administrator, it is not what do you want to buy, but rather what do you want to do with the technology, or better yet, what problem do you want to solve? We all have classrooms with interactive whiteboards that serve as nothing more than glorified chalkboards. We can't continually invest because it's simply new or shiny. It needs to serve a purpose, and that purpose must be to engage, enhance, and improve student learning. As I conclude the webinar, like all of you, I struggle to get it more right than wrong. And on our system, we've had some great successes, but we've also had some miserable failures too. We range from mediocre to great. We have pockets of excellence and innovation, and we have pockets of same old, same old. And those of you who know me well enough to know that I'm brutally honest. But what I can say is that our culture of innovation is an ongoing journey, and improvement is our continual focus. Thanks for listening in on this webinar, and I hope it's been helpful. As I close, I just want to remind people that I've benefited from many who have assisted me along my leadership journey and have taken many ideas from around the province and across this country. Please don't hesitate to contact me if you would like to discuss further, as my belief is kids are far too important to keep our best ideas hidden from others. Thanks again.